Here's the recap of the 3 seasons of Mayor of Kingstown. The city of Kingstown lives because of the prisons. For the most part, people either sit in them or work serving the correctional facilities. The McCluskey family has a close connection to this town. Miriam's mother works as a teacher and educates the prisoners. The father died long ago but left his sons a business. It consists of maintaining a balance among cons, guards, police, and street gangs. Simply put, to solve their problems in such a way that everyone is satisfied. The eldest son, Mitch, who is called the Mayor of Kingstown, although he is not really, is very successful in his business. The second son, Mike, is loyal to his brother, but really hates this town and dreams of getting out of it someday. They are respected by absolutely everyone as they solve people's problems, not to make a profit on their misfortune, but to do everything according to justice. However, the main characters sometimes have to break the law, and this is also known to absolutely everyone, including the police, who cooperate with them in every possible way. Mitch and Mike also have a younger brother, Kyle, but he has become a policeman and has a wife, but this does not prevent him from doing some dirty deeds like everyone else in this city. One of the prison guards comes to Mitch's office and tells him that his boy named Sam, also a guard, has done something wrong, which is why the prisoners have compromising information on him and will not hesitate to use it in case of trouble. The guard asks Sam for help and Mitch agrees. However, at this moment the guy is provoked by a prisoner and he beats him to a pulp, setting up everything as self-defense. Soon Sam is transferred away from the prison blocks to the tower, where he accidentally shoots a black guy during a riot. Everyone realizes that it is dangerous for Sam to be in this prison now, and he is transferred to a women's prison. However, by the end of the season, he is seduced by a female prisoner and killed in a fake rape. Let's go back in time. Vera, the wife of a very dangerous prisoner named Milo, walks into Mitch's office. This leader of the local Russian mafia has committed a major crime in the past, hid the loot in the woods, and got a life sentence. Mitch and Milo had some past dealings. The bandit gave Mitch the task to get the money and give it to Vera, of course not forgetting to keep a percentage for himself. Mitch sends his brothers to get the money. They dig it up and lock it in Mitch's safe. However, at night, some gangster breaks into Vera's house, kills the woman, and finds out about the money. He sneaks into Mitch's office, shoots him in the head, and takes the money. The next day, everyone learns about what happened, and the police discover the killer. Mike asks Robert, the head of the Special Forces, to kill the bastard as soon as he sees him, that he actually does, out of respect for the McCluskey family. Milo's right hand comes to Mike and demands the lost money from him, but Mike makes it clear that he is not to blame for what happened. The whole town is on its ear as the mayor of Kingstown is dead. Mike at first wants to leave the city, as now he has nothing to hold him here, but decides to stay and clean up the chaos that has begun. Soon, 2 FBI agents come to Mike and tell him that Mitch was their informant. Mike is not surprised, as he knew about it perfectly well. Moreover, everyone around knew about it, as absolutely the whole city is tied up in corruption or criminal dealings. And if someone speaks up, a huge number of people will be imprisoned or killed. Mike, like his brother, agrees to become an FBI informant, but on his own terms. One night, some junkie named Kenny was cooking substances in his trailer, and everything exploded due to inattention. His girlfriend and a small child were killed, and he went on the run. The police believe that such a freak should not go to jail and should die, but there is a chance that they will not be able to kill him when they arrest him. Then they turn to Mike to make a deal with the gangs in the detention center. Mike tries to dissuade them, as for certain reasons it will be necessary to involve absolutely all the gangs, which means that the police and guards will owe the criminals. However, the police stand their ground. Mike has to make a deal with the gang leaders, specifically Bunny, the black leader, Duke, the white Nazi leader, and Carlos, the Mexican leader. Eventually, Kenny is caught, but the cops fail to kill him in the process. Because of this, Plan B is launched, in which all the gangs in the detention center organize a real massacre and beat Kenny to death. Soon, the leaders of the gangs begin to come to Mike and demand favors for the recent murder. These demands are out of bounds, and the police and prison guards decide to respond harshly. They quarantine the prisoners. That is, they won't let them leave their cells. Because of this, the situation in the prison, as well as outside it, escalates. We learn that Mike is sleeping with Evelyn, the local district attorney, but she doesn't want a serious relationship with a man involved in crime. Meanwhile, Kyle, Mike's brother, along with his partner Ian, accidentally witness a robbery they think they are witnessing. However, for some reason, the owner of the diner starts shooting at them, and the cops kill him. It turns out the owner was a drug dealer and thought it was a raid. Mike once again solves all the questions, and his brother Kyle tells them that his wife is pregnant. He then announces that he is going to leave town and transfer to the state police. Soon Bunny, the leader of the blacks, asks Mike for a favor, to take his cousin to the white neighborhood for a hockey game. By the way, the guy is not a criminal. Mike agrees, but during the game he witnesses racism on the part of whites and stands up for the kid. After that, Bunny starts to respect Mike. Meanwhile, Russian gangster Milo does not want to quarrel with Mike and still needs his services. He realizes that Mike needs a completely different approach and sends a young prostitute Iris to him. For the record, the woman has been sent to influential officials before and then blackmailed. Arriving at Mike's house, Iris tries to seduce him, but he ignores her and does not want to deal with Milo. The villain soon realizes that Mike needs to be influenced differently. He orders his right hand to beat up the woman and sends her to Mike again. The protagonist decides to help Iris and calls the FBI agents he knows who are supposed to get her into the witness protection program. However, it turns out that Milo is overly connected and also has a tracking device implanted in every prostitute. When Mike returns to the office, the agents are found murdered and Iris is kidnapped. Afterward, the villain reveals exactly what he wants from Mike. It turns out that Mike simply needs to return to the place where he previously dug up Milo's money and dig up a certain iron box. And the bandit doesn't care if FBI agents arrive there together with him. Mike is perplexed and thinks it's some kind of setup. He manages to get away from the agent's tail and with the help of a metal detector discovers the buried bus, not realizing that he just accidentally found not Milo's box. The police dig up the bus, go inside and see 26 dead bodies hanging on hooks. For the record before this, we are told about the maniac who committed the murders. The bodies were not found then. However, the killer was recently executed in Kingstown. Now the cops and FBI agents connect the maniac and Milo, and the Russian gangster is shocked by what happened and realizes what position he is in. He's facing the death penalty. After all that has happened, Rebecca Mike's secretary finds a new office for them, which is across the street strictly. Meanwhile, Milo's right-hand man gives Iris to Duke of the Nazi group. The woman had no idea what awaits her in the near future. Soon, Iris breaks down and begins to go nuts. After that, Duke sells her into slavery to another group as a broken doll. As luck would have it, the car in which Iris was being transported gets into a gang fight, and the woman is sent to Bunny's hands. Having found out that she is an acquaintance of Mike, he informs him about it and he takes her to his place. Mike realizes where she's been all this time and goes to Duke. Then he kills him and all his henchmen. He cuts out Iris's tracking device and puts her in his house, which is in the woods, where there is no network coverage. Meanwhile, the prisoners are on hunger strike, and the director decides to find out what they want. The director is unaware that the prisoners and the police had previously agreed to kill Kenny, after which the police broke their end of the deal. The leaders of the groups meet with the director, and one of the criminals talks about the agreement. After that, the head of the prison removes the quarantine, thinking that this will settle the conflict. However, all the gangs collude and organize a rebellion. First, the criminals kill one of the guards, and also send a message to finish off Sam in the women's prison, which I talked about at the beginning of the video. Then one gang leader manages to get into the armory and distributes guns to the rest of the prisoners. Then they start killing the guards. Kyle's brother Mike and his partner Ian were in prison for work at that moment and found themselves in the center of the riot. Milo takes advantage of the situation to further fuel the aggression of the criminals and direct their rebellion. However, he himself is stealthily changing into a security uniform. Meanwhile, the whole city learns about what has happened. Mike arrives on the spot and acts as a negotiator, but the government does not want to go along with the criminals and sends the military. Everything gets out of control, and the soldiers start shooting the rebellious prisoners. However, Mike and his brother survive this hell. We also see that Milo manages to escape from prison. This is the end of the first season. Some time passes and Kingstown is still reeling from the recent events. The prison where the riot took place was closed, and the remaining prisoners were put outside in the blazing sun. Due to the deaths of gang leaders who were in the prison, violence broke out. The chaos spreads to the streets of the city, and war breaks out between the gangs. Police officers Ian and Stevie ask Mike to negotiate a truce, but it turns out that until the prisons do not choose new leaders, the situation will not improve. Everything is aggravated by the fact that the prison guards have a grudge against the prisoners and do not let them live in peace. All because during the riot, half of the prison staff were killed, and the other half brutally beaten and raped. The temporary warden named Kareem decides to take revenge on his abusers and brutally beats them. This further adds fuel to the fire. Bunny informs Mike that local gangs are planning to start hunting the cops. The protagonist realizes that in this case, the military will enter the city and a real massacre will begin. So Mike asks to delay the massacre until he comes up with something. Mike goes to the district attorney Evelyn and wants to know if Milo's body has been found, since he is not among the surviving prisoners. Many bodies were burned in the fire, and Evelyn isn't sure, but she hasn't seen anyone who looks like the Russian bandit. Mike realizes that Milo somehow managed to escape. He doesn't tell Iris about it, but contacts the FBI again to have them run the woman through the witness protection program. However, when Iris learns from the agents that Milo is most likely alive, she runs away from them. After some time, she finds the secret hideout of her former boss and asks to be taken back in. He agrees and sends her to a brothel, where she is re-implanted with a tracking chip and starts working there. Mike learns that Iris has escaped from the FBI, but can't find her. Meanwhile, Kyle, Mike's brother, transfers to the state police, but his current partner is too careless and ends up getting killed when they stop a random car. Kyle is suspended by his superiors and quits his job, after which he moves back to the Kingstown police station. There is another shootout in the streets of the city, and innocent people are caught in the crossfire. Mike realizes that there is no other way out, and asks the leaders of the Kingstown gangs to meet to discuss a truce. He also makes an agreement with the police officers and the district attorney. The plan of the protagonist is to put the gang leaders in the very temporary prison, where they will have to restore order, and the guards will facilitate this, after which the prosecutor's office in the person of Evelyn will release the leaders. Of course, Mike didn't tell the gangsters about his plan beforehand, or they would have refused. Gang leaders get into a temporary prison, where they begin to establish their own order, and not without scuffles. One of the leaders decided to kill Bunny, but he managed to defeat his enemy. Soon, Bunny meets Mike and reports that they have established order. Now it's time for the protagonist to fulfill his part of the deal. Bunny also notices that the government has begun to disperse prisoners to other prisons. The man is afraid that they can transfer him too, and starting from scratch in a new prison is dangerous and very long, so Bunny demands that Mike hurry up. However, when the protagonist comes to Evelyn, she says that the prosecutor is not going to let the gang leaders go free. Mike warns that if her boss does not come to his senses, it will once again unleash war on the streets of Kingstown. And when Mike returns to the temporary prison, it turns out that all the prisoners have already been transferred. Mike tries to find out where all the gang leaders have been transferred to, and asks loyal guard Carney to spy for him. They soon find them, but the new prison is run by the Aryan Brotherhood, and they have a whole business selling illegal substances inside. Bunny is not happy that Mike still hasn't gotten him out of jail. The protagonist doesn't know what to do. He once again lies that he will take care of it. In the meantime, he can help with the problem of organizing business inside the correctional facility. Although Mike asked Bunny to keep his head down, the criminal starts to act behind the protagonist's back and kills the leader of the Mexican gang. One day, an ordinary construction worker accidentally digs up an iron box and takes it for himself. Inside, he finds some ancient bonds. The man learns that by selling them, you can get very rich, so he tries to find out to whom they can be sold. Eventually, he comes across Milo's men, who owned the iron box. Joseph, his right hand, begins to torture the man to find out where he hid the securities. But the construction worker does not give up, and in the end, he is killed. At this time, his wife realizes that something is wrong, so she takes the bonds to the police station. Officer Stevie immediately calls Mike, and the main characters realize that they are dealing with Milo. Mike advises Stevie not to make a case and to hide the bonds so that even the other cops won't know about them. The next day, the construction worker's wife is also found dead, so Mike informs his friends that they need to remove the bonds from the police station, since Milo will not hesitate to attack the cops for such a huge amount of money. Warden Kareem learns that one of the prisoners he beat up at the beginning of the season is dying. If he dies and an autopsy is performed, an investigation will begin, and perhaps everyone will find out that Kareem is responsible for the guy's death. Eventually, the prisoner dies, but Guard Carney says he'll cover for Kareem if necessary. We are also shown that Robert, who leads an elite SWAT team, is being prosecuted. It turns out that one of his co-workers thought that during the suppression of the riot, Robert acted excessively cruel and killed indiscriminately. Now the officer faces prison if he fails to persuade the snitch to withdraw his testimony. Ian decides to help his colleague. He takes away from prison the maniac on his own responsibility and goes home to the snitch. There, Ian, with the help of the maniac, threatens the snitch, and he agrees to withdraw his testimony. However, suddenly the psycho gets out of control and kills the snitch. Ian sets up the whole thing as a simple robbery and doesn't tell anyone about what happened. And the charges against Robert are eventually dropped. Mike meets Wendy Morris. The woman, roughly speaking, runs all the private prisons in Kingstown and the surrounding area. Her influence is enough to pressure the prosecutor into signing Bunny's release papers. Wendy doesn't see her own gain in this, so Mike says he'll owe her from now on. The protagonist goes to Bunny and tells him that he will be released soon. The man doesn't believe his words and says that the other gangs are starting to sink their teeth into Mike. Bunny also hints that he will help him move his release forward. That night, Bunny's men kill a prosecutor who didn't want to sign the release papers for the gang leaders. Mike is shocked by what happened and asks his friend Evelyn to sign the documents as soon as possible before anything happens to her. But the woman doesn't want to go along with the criminals and says she won't sign the documents. However, Wendy Morris somehow makes sure that Bunny is released. Also earlier, Mike stops the Aryan Brotherhood from supplying illegal substances to the prison using drones. This angers the criminals, and they send a corrupt guard to the protagonist, but Mike manages to kill him. Soon Milo realizes that he can't get his bonds for nothing. The Russian gangster guesses that Mike has the bonds, so he meets with him. Milo proposes a trade. The bonds for Iris's full release. We are also shown that Iris has killed Joseph, Milo's right-hand man, whom she has long had a grudge against. Meanwhile, Bunny's men rob a gun store. The police can't let it go, and there is a chance that a real witch hunt will begin. Mike tries to settle things and asks Bunny to give up the guns before serious consequences begin. But the leader of the criminal gang is not going to give up the guns, saying that they are needed to protect his territory. Plus, Bunny hints that everyone in the prison has a grudge against Robert because of his overkill during the riot, so he's in danger. Mike tries to warn Robert, but fails, and the man ends up in the hospital with serious injuries. If he dies, it could bring the war to Kingstown again. But now it's between the police and criminal gangs. Mike goes to meet Milo to trade Iris for the bonds. But on the way, he is attacked by the Aryan Brotherhood. Mike manages to survive and asks Carney to help him solve it. After that, other criminal gangs kill the racist leader. Because of the attack, Mike is late for his meeting with Milo, so the Russian gangster shows up at his house and takes his mother Miriam hostage. Mike takes his brother Kyle and Officer Ian with him. Things don't go according to plan, and a gunfight ensues in which Kyle accidentally injures his mother. Mike calls Milo again and arranges a meeting. This time the exchange is going well, surprisingly. Mike and Iris go to the pier, and when the boat with Milo sails away, there is an explosion. Apparently, Mike put explosives in the bond bag. However, In the last frames of the episode, we see Milo's assistant talking to her boss on the phone, who informs her that everything went according to plan. This is the end of the second season. Miriam, the mother of the main characters, dies from her injuries. At the funeral, someone detonates a homemade bomb, but fortunately no one is seriously injured. Mike thinks it was the Aryan Brotherhood and gives the police a tip about the location of one of their bases. After that, Robert's special forces destroy everyone there. Meanwhile, Bunny agrees to return the weapons stolen last season. But as we later learn, there is a reason for this. His gang has obtained military equipment and is preparing to take over the streets with it. Mike asks him to reconsider, as this will disrupt the already fragile balance of power in the city. However, Bunny refuses. A new leader of the Aryan Brotherhood named Merle appears in Kingstown prison. He kills the previous leader and begins to actively seize power behind bars. Soon, Mike meets him, and we learn that they are well acquainted. It turns out that when Mike was in prison, he was in the Aryan gang and worked for Merle. The man demands special attention, and Mike promises to help him. But as we learn in the end, he despises Merle and wants him dead. A new representative of the Russian mafia named Konstantin also appears in the city. He would like to kill Milo himself, as the gangster was acting too independently. But Milo has disappeared. Konstantin does not believe that he is dead and kills his assistant Tatiana, throwing her son into a dumpster. However, the police find the baby and rescue him. Mike visits Konstantin and tells him what the rules are in the city. At first, the gangster tries to kill him, but in the end, he admits that the Mayor of Kingstown is important. Now that she is free, Iris wants to help Mike with his work. She returns to Milo's club where she meets Konstantin. It turns out that she has known him since she was 16, and that he taught her everything she knows. Iris wants to help Mike get rid of Konstantin, so she starts working for the gangster and leaks information about him throughout the season. Several cars explode in the parking lot of a police station. The city is blocked off, and everyone is looking for the criminal. Mike suspects that it is the Aryans, and eventually finds out who is responsible for the explosions. It turns out that the man fled into black territory. Bunny hands him over to Mike, and the mayor tries to find out who exactly ordered him to blow up the cars. The criminal is proud to be a member of the Aryan gang and refuses to talk. He insults Mike and his late mother. For this, the mayor throws him off the roof. People start dying of overdoses in prison, and it was Bunny's supplies. The thing is, someone mixed something unknown into the new shipment of illegal substances. Mike believes that the Russians and Aryans have joined forces and are trying to eliminate their competitors. Because of this, a war breaks out between all the gangs. The Whites kill Bunny's sister in her beauty salon. In response, the Blacks attack the Russians' bar. Mike tries to solve the problem, but nothing works. Soon, Raphael, the leader of the Blacks in prison, manages to stabilize the supply situation with Mike's advice. However, the Aryans almost kill Raphael, and after a while, their corrupt guards threaten his family. At the end of the season, Raphael escapes from the courtroom to see his loved ones just in case, and Mike arranges for him to return to prison without any problems. A bus carrying young Russian girls who are going to be used for prostitution crosses the border into America and soon arrives in Kingstown. However, they are stopped on the bridge and the bus is pushed into the river with a forklift truck. The police are horrified by the number of bodies inside and try to figure out who did it, but there are no clues. Theoretically, it could be either the Aryan gang or Bunny, but something still doesn't add up. Against this backdrop, Bunny tells Mike that he will no longer listen to his advice. To teach him a lesson, the mayor informs the police about his military weapons warehouse, knowing that he will have time to move everything. However, by the end of the season, Bunny and Mike make peace. Let's also go over some moments in the series that aren't very important, but may be mentioned in the next season. One day, a woman asks Mike for a favor. Her son's killer is about to be released from prison. Mike doesn't have time to do anything, and the killer is set free. Then the woman shoots the killer herself. For this, she is sent to prison. Mike visits her and pours out his heart to her. Kareem, the prison warden, is facing dismissal because of everything that happened earlier. The man needs money for his family, but without a job, he won't be able to help them. So at the end of the season, he goes to the Aryan gang's block and they kill him. All this is apparently for the sake of the insurance money his family will receive. Remember last season when Ian tried to intimidate the snitch with the help of a maniac, but the maniac accidentally killed him. So this psycho starts talking too much and Ian shoots him, saying that he attacked him. Prosecutor Evelyn figures out what happened, but she doesn't have any solid proof yet. Ian tells his friends everything, and they try to figure out how to solve this problem together. However, Mike asks them not to do anything because he's still sleeping with Evelyn and wants to settle everything peacefully. Tracy, Kyle's wife, gives birth to a child and soon returns to work. She is a nurse in a women's prison. Tracy soon learns that prison guards are raping women without punishment. She reports this to her boss, but she is not going to do anything about it. In the evening, one of the guards confronts Tracy and threatens her. She decides not to tell her husband and asks Mike for help. He beats up the guard and forces him to transfer to another prison. The other guards get the message and stop raping the women. Meanwhile, Kyle decides to join the special forces, as he will be able to earn more money there. He succeeds and becomes Robert's subordinate, who is already not very good with his head. But after everything that has happened, he completely loses his mind. Bunny's men attack the prison. With the help of Kevin, a guard who works for him, they learn that Merle has gone out into the courtyard with his men. The gangsters throw grenades at the Aryans and flee. Some of the Nazis are killed, but Merle survives, though seriously wounded. Mike visits him in the hospital and lies that it was the Russians who did it to turn them against each other. He succeeds, and the gangs stop cooperating. Mike devises a complex plan to restore balance in the city. He tells Constantine that he knows when and where Bunny will be transporting his weapons. He then warns Bunny about this. The idea is to lure the Russians into a trap and kill them all. At the same time, the police must not interfere. However, everything gets out of control, and a shootout begins on the bridge among a crowd of civilians. Special forces also arrive at the scene. Robert loses his temper and almost kills an innocent man. Kyle has to shoot him, for which the man is eventually arrested. A little earlier, we learn that Milo is not dead. He was the one who staged the explosion at the funeral to get Mike's attention and pushed the bus with the Russian girls into the water. It is also unclear what other crimes he committed this season and pinned on other gangs. While the shootout on the bridge is going on, Milo makes his way onto the Russians' yacht. There he takes Constantine and Iris hostage, then calls Mike. Arriving at the scene, the mayor tries to understand what exactly Milo wants. It turns out that he intends to return to business and control everything from the shadows. Milo does not hold a grudge against Mike, but demands that Iris kill Constantine. In the end, she does so, and Mike finally kills Milo. Iris decides to leave Kingstown after all. She gets on a bus and consumes a large amount of illegal substances. When the bus arrives at its destination, it turns out that the woman has died of an overdose. This is the end of the third season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.